Today I want to discuss some types of poetry and their definitions. You will need to take notes as I give you information. Poetry is a separate genre or category of literature. Poetry is different from prose in that poetry compresses meaning into fewer words and often uses meter, rhythm, and rhyme. Think of it this way. Short stories and newspaper articles are prose, while roses are red, violets are blue is part of a poem. Epic poems involve a hero of noble birth, whose actions may affect an entire nation. This hero has almost superhuman abilities and will encounter supernatural creatures. Epics are usually very long and written in very formal language. Examples of Greek epic poems are the Odyssey and the Iliad. An example of a British epic is Beowulf. Beowulf was written during the Anglo-Saxon time period. Some scholars think Beowulf dates back to the 700s. Epics are only one form of narrative poem. Narrative poems tell a story. You can remember this by thinking of narrators who tell stories. One very famous narrative poem you will read is Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. The Canterbury Tales was written in the Middle Ages. A lyric poem is a musical poem. Remember this term by thinking of song lyrics. Lyric poems express the speaker's emotions and use a regular meter. The difference between a narrative and lyrical poem is the main purpose of a lyrical poem is to express emotion, not tell a story. Lyric poems are often about love, loss, war and peace, religion, or nature. Sometimes a lyric poem is an elegy. An elegy is a poem about the death of a loved one. One example of an elegy mourning the dead is Thomas Gray's Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. One type of lyric poem is the sonnet. The sonnet is a 14-line poem with a set rhyme scheme and meter. The meter is often iambic pentameter. The most famous British writer of sonnets is Shakespeare. Dramatic poems are told from the point of view of a speaker. The speaker is not the poet. Some dramatic poems rely on monologue where one character speaks. These poems are called dramatic monologues. Other dramatic poems include conversation or dialogue. Two very famous examples of dramatic monologues are Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress and Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. There is much more to poetry than what I have discussed in this short lecture. Later, I will address the elements of poetry. In the meantime, keep learning and reading.